gentlemen, welcome to Sports Reports as Ordered. I am your co-host, Mike Wilson, sitting here along with my guy, Raphael Rutley.
What's
So
going on?
we're going to come to you today. We're going to give you some playoff predictions for Wild Card Weekend. You'll get the Super Bowl picks and all that later. I'm the type that's going to go back and look and see who won. So if I pick my Super Bowl pick today, I don't want y'all calling me a flip-flopper. Outside of that, we're going to talk about the plight of the black coach, and then we're going to talk about things that we need to get off our chest. So, Raph, what you got, man? What's going on?
Hey man, just chilling. Just excited to get this going. I got my retirement certificates back there, so it's like might as well transition to something new.
All right, all right. Let's get that. Let's get that video going because I don't see you no more.
I'm on the same. I'm on the same boat. Like, let me hit this button and see what's good.
Yeah,
I don't see you
yeah.
either. All right, I
Oh,
turned
okay.
it back on.
Here we go. Now I see you.
All right, now you do the same thing.
All right, hold on. Let's see here.
I just
Boom.
turned the video off, turn it back on. There it is. Look
All
at
right,
us.
there we go.
Technical
There we
difficulty.
go. We in the building.
I'm seeing a couple of vets drinking beers.
That's
Cheers.
right. Cheers, cheers, cheers. So first things first, we got to introduce ourselves to people. They know our names now, so what brought you to the podcast world?
Podcast, bro. I just figured, man, I watch a lot of these podcasts on television, a lot of sports talk shows, spend a lot of time conversing with people about sports. And I just wanted to talk to somebody that, I felt like actually cared about the sport more than the ratings. So conversations with, authentic people and having just real genuine conversations. I mean, like that's key. That's key to the existence. You can do everything you want, but if you don't have like good social contact with people, I think sports is a microcosm of how we can merge social issues, how we can merge our differences, and just kind of just either have like a great debate or we can join. Like I might walk through a supermarket today with this Atlanta Falcons hat and jersey on, and I might see a Saints fan. They might say something. Yeah, maybe we got y'all the last time. Have a little, we chopping up a little bit in the bread aisle, but in the same sense, someone could come to me with a Falcons jersey. I'm like, yeah, what's going on with the coach? What's going on with this? Or
Right,
people
right.
like, are you from Atlanta? I'm like, nah, not from Atlanta. Deion Sanders is my favorite player. So I'm like, oh, you like Deion? Oh man, I love Deion. I think he's gonna do a great job in Colorado. Now you have this dialogue that you wouldn't have without these emblems that we have. So, I just want to do that. And then like I said, me and you have just hours and hours of unrecorded, conversations. So I was like, man, let's go ahead. We both retired. We both served our country for over 20 years. Time to get something back. So it's like, let's give back to ourselves and just document, these times
Yep.
that we.
Yeah, for sure. And you've heard me say this before. We just talk about sports in a little different way than I have conversations with other people. Like it's easy to get into the like, hey, this guy choked or this guy did this or this guy did that. But we like to get a little deeper as far as this is why this happened or these are the numbers, this is why you shouldn't have expected that this was going to work, those type of things. And giving back is a big thing for me, especially with the point you made about being a microcosm of society and everything. Like sports brings us together even when we're divided. Damar Hamlin is an example of that. Like I live in San Antonio, so Cowboy fans everywhere. Sometimes I walk down the street, I see a Cowboy jersey, and I tell them, "Hey, we not in Dallas, right?" You know, we have those conversations, but when that stuff happens, you kind of just give a nod, you kind of give a, "Hey, man, that sucks," or you just kind of relate a little bit. So when we talk, I enjoy it, and I realized that I already knew sports was a passion, but I didn't realize how much this was a passion, as far as actually talking about it, debating it on a level that other people can get involved, because that's what it's all about, bringing people together,
Exactly.
you
We're
know.
we're 17, 1,800 miles apart right now, but yet
Yep.
it's
And,
just
and, for
like,
y'all out there,
wow.
we usually do this 2 to 3 times a week, like just on the phone, going back and forth. Why did John Harbaugh go for that fourth down? Because Buffalo was going to score anyway. You
And they
don't know that.
should have just kicked the field goal if they're
Yeah.
worried about that. But we've hashed that out.
Yes, yes. But just for the record, I was team go for it. He was team take the points. It happens.
Everyone
but
disagree, which is way better than sitting around with a bunch of people who always agree with you.
Yes, so our plan.
Can't learn that way.
So our plan is to give you exclusive content 2 times a week. We're going to follow this up during NBA season. We're going to talk about NFL today, but we are not an NFL show. We're going to talk to you about sports in general. As I said, the title is Sports Reports as Ordered. So with that being said, I'm ready to talk some playoffs.
Let's talk these playoffs.
Playoffs.
15 teams, but we know that's neither here nor there. They've already made the decision. Not a big fan of 17 games. I don't like odd numbers. So we have in order San Francisco, Seattle.
All right.
What you got?
So I did some thinking about this, probably more thinking than I had any business doing. The correct answer is San Francisco. Like, I have no reason to pick Seattle at all. I have numbers. I have things that, maybe Seattle has a slight chance, but then when I peel it back, they don't. So, for example, since 2011, rookie quarterbacks have gone 3-9 in the playoffs. And then you have 9-8 since 1983 with a whole lot of Mark Sanchez in there because, he won the 2 playoff games, got to the AFC title game, that kind of thing.
Played.
But football is the ultimate team sport. So that's where we get into the Brock Purdy thing where the rookie numbers don't necessarily sit well for him, but he has that defense. And a lot of rookies don't necessarily have that defense. So I said, what is the X factor in this game? So what I came up with, the Seattle Seahawks, when they rush for 75 yards this season, they are 9-3. If they don't, they are 0-5. Over, I said, over. With that being said,
5 yards.
Yes, with that being said, the 49ers give up 77.7 rush yards a game.
So something's got to give.
Something's got to give. And what's even more interesting about that side note real quick is that the next team, because San Francisco's number 1 in the league, the next team is around 110 yards per game. So San Francisco really stops the run, just to give you some clarity. So I said, hey, what can Seattle do? And I came up with 3 things. 1, Geno Smith has to channel West Virginia Geno Smith. He needs to dig in there and get that guy that will take off and run and doesn't care if he gets hit, whatever the case may be. To offset San Francisco's defense, you got to play judo. Use their energy against them. They get aggressive. You hit them with a screen. Maybe you hit them with a counter. You hit them with some traps. And then third, Kenneth Walker has to play because if they're going to run the ball, he has to play. And last I checked, he hadn't practiced yet this week with an ankle injury. So let's break that down just for a quick second, and then it's all yours. So I looked at it. Screenplays. The Seattle Seahawks average 2.9 yards per screenplay. San Francisco wins this game. I got it about 19-10 because I feel that Brock Purdy, they're going to keep it close to the vest. They don't need to be explosive. They don't need to take chances. Just get down the field, put some points on the board, and dare Seattle to score against you.
So you got 19-10.
19-10.
They're averaging, only giving up 77 yards rushing. You do have a stud wide receiver, but that's not part of Seattle's identity. I got it 24-7 San Francisco, simply because San Francisco's running game and even their passing game is just an extension of the run game. So Brock Purdy is throwing slip screens, the Deebo Samuel package, or it's Kittle in the middle of the field, one-on-one with a linebacker or one-on-one with a safety. Kittle has 7 touchdowns since Purdy started playing. He had like 10 the previous 2 seasons before. 2
of those touchdowns right here.
Yo, he got a couple early against, I forgot what game it was, but it was like, I think it was like Purdy's second game. It was like, I think it was the Raiders. And he just was running wide open in the middle of the field. So Shanahan should have learned his lesson from a couple of his playoff games, mainly his Super Bowl performances. Like, just run the ball. Like I said, Chris McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk running a little bubble screen, those little touch passes, little flare passes, flat passes, and then Kittle in the middle of the field, play good, tough defense. Geno's going to give you a couple of opportunities to take the ball away just because he's going to have to. When they're down 10-0, you can't just keep running the ball. San Francisco's tough in the run. They get down 10-0. He's going to have to take a shot. Everyone knows that shot's going to go to Metcalf. And you just play it accordingly. I think DeMeco Ryans, who's probably a head coaching candidate, I don't know what team he would go to, but he's head coach candidate, defense coordinator for San Francisco. He's going to have it on lock. So even with the rookie quarterback, he'll get the same kind of Mark Sanchez. He'll throw like 25 passes, but most of them, 8 of them be more than 10 yards. So yeah, I got San Francisco easy in that 124-7.
Yeah, and preview for later, DeMeco, do not go to Houston. Do not go to Houston.
I mean, come on home. You play there, come on home.
I know, but
bad job. But we'll get to that in our next segment. All right, you got Jacksonville. This is where you got Jacksonville.
Yeah, so I got Jacksonville, something around 24-21. So first of all, I want to say, throw week 3 out of the window. So Jacksonville in week 3 crushed San Diego, LA, 38-10. Justin Herbert was injured. He played, but he had a rib injury going on. I believe, if I remember correctly, that Keenan Allen got hurt that game. So throw that game out the window. For me, what this came down to was the coaching matchup. In one corner, you have Super Bowl champion Doug Peterson, and in the other corner, you got always going for it on 4th down in the wrong moment, Brandon Staley. So from that standpoint, Jacksonville has been on a tear this last month, especially the game against Dallas. That was the game that kind of woke everybody up and said Jacksonville may have something here. So you want a stat? Here you go. The Chargers are last in the league, giving up 5.4 yards per carry to their opponents. And then you say, okay, they're bad against the run. Maybe they're good against the pass. They're number 21 against the pass. So maybe not so much. Jacksonville's not much better, or actually they're a little worse. They're number 22. But the Chargers are also bottom 5 in rushing attempts per game because they got this dude named Justin Herbert, and they just say, throw 200 passes every week and we'll find a way to win. And, he's always at the top of the league in passing attempts. Playoffs kind of slow down a little bit, so I wonder how that's going to work. They have the long trip traveling across the country, and not just traveling across the country, but traveling across and down to Florida. So, there's that's a lot to go on. But what the Chargers can do, this is by no means a slam dunk. The Chargers have to disguise their coverages because Trevor Lawrence is pretty good at reading the defense, audibling out, knowing what's going on. So the Chargers have to play cat and mouse. They have to show him a little bit of bait, and then once the play gets close to starting or once the snap actually happens, somebody has to do something that he's not anticipating. Because if not, he could just dink and dunk you death by 1,000 paper cuts. Yeah. So from that standpoint, the other thing I don't like for the Chargers, Mike Williams with the back injury. He has not practiced this week. And I just feel like, and I know I don't want to sound insensitive here, but I feel like every time I watch a Charger game, somebody important gets hurt.
Their wide receivers always hurt.
Yeah, there's somebody always hurt.
There.
Yes, the best ability is availability.
Receivers, and then after December, none of them are there.
Yeah, and last thing I'm going to throw out there real quick, the reason I call him Mr. 4th down going for it at the wrong time is I go back to last season against Las Vegas. See, I almost said Oakland, against Las Vegas. The last game of the season, even a tie gets you into the playoffs. And he goes for it on 4th down in the 3rd quarter at his own 21. Get stopped.
It made no sense. It made no sense. I remember watching this thing like, I thought the screen was wrong. I thought it was like, it has to be 3rd down. There's no way you, like, what's your incentive? Mm-hmm. Like if you're not on a scoring drive, and if you're on a scoring drive, more likely you don't get the 4th down. Mm-hmm. You don't get to when you're on a scoring drive, it's 1st down, 2nd down, maybe convert 3rd down easy and you move.
Right.
You convert 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 from the 23, you still got 70 yards to go.
But then in overtime, he just let the Raiders run the clock down. And, like after the game, there were Raider players, the Raiders interim coach at the time, he was saying, we were almost perfectly content to go with the tie because with a tie, they both get in anyway. So it was just one of those
Which
things where.
I didn't like that because me and my son talked about that the other day. I'm like, I think that's not a wise move. They should have just gone for the win. Like, I
No,
don't know.
I agree. I agree.
Why would you even mention after, like, because you obviously lined up for the field goal. Because if
Right.
you really were content with going with the tie, you would have taken another knee, let the clock run out, and gone about your business.
Well, I think it was just one of those things where
I'm not letting the
they were there to take the field goal. Like it was like here, it's right here, so they just took it, But also this season, because I don't want to live in the past. So this season as well, at Paul Brown Stadium in Cleveland, the Dog Pound. They had a fourth down with about a minute 14 left. They were winning by 2, and they went for it on fourth down at the 46. They didn't get it. Cleveland bailed them out because they missed a 54-yard field goal. So in that moment, the defense stepped up. But why put your defense in that situation?
Because, I trust my defense. I knew my defense would go out there and get a stop if we needed, but I really felt like we could convert on. Like, you can't have both feelings.
Yes, correct.
He came out and said, I really thought we had a good play call and we're going to make this happen, but I knew our defense would make this stop. Like, why would you even, like, there was no need to do that. But
Correct.
With
so what you got?
I still got LA. I got LA because Justin Herbert will make the throw that gets him in a scoring position when they had no business being in it. Because it's a toss-up game. I think the odds makers and Vegas have it as a pick 'em.
Mm-hmm.
Like the odds, each team winning is like one's like 50.3%, and the other one's like 49.7, or it's 50-50. So it's a toss-up. So I'm going with the guy I think will make the playoff play to get him in position to score. Staley, yes. I personally think he should just keep playing the way he plays and calls the way he calls, because if his hypothetically his job's on the line because all the fourth down calls over the last couple of years, why go into this playoff game and lose and they fire you because Sean Payton, happens to be in LA and wants to get interviewed? You go out. You go out swing. You play to win the game. You play your game, and I think you play well. Considering it's a toss-up, you got Trevor Lawrence, his first bit of success since Clemson. Even though I've always thought he looked like an NFL quarterback, there's something about the way he drops back, sees the route combination, and he just lets it go. Some quarterbacks you can tell they're looking to see if is this safety going to make it over, is this linebacker? He's like, no, my guy's supposed to be here on this curl route. I'm letting it go. Justin Herbert's the same way. So I think that when it comes down to it, it's going to be a sequence of plays where Justin Herbert rolls out and makes the ridiculous 30-yard back shoulder throw, 15 seconds left in the second quarter to get them in field goal range. They go on halftime up 10-7 versus tied at something along those lines. I just have that. I have the faith in the playmakers. I know coaching does matter. You can tell the difference between Urban Meyer, coach Jaguars, versus a Doug Peterson coach Jaguars. But in the same sense, playmakers on the field making plays. And I think Justin Herbert is just one of those guys that just he tries and succeeds at making the play in spite of some of the decisions by his coach.
So let's pause for a second. So Chargers lose this game. Staley's out, you're thinking?
What I think is that the same way you and I hear what the media talks about, the GMs and these offices and these player personnel people, they hear the same thing. We're educated men. We're smart. We learn. We can understand these things. So they're hearing that stuff. They're hearing the murmurs. They're hearing that Sean Payton's available. And he's like the shiny new penny. Like what they say, everyone's favorite player is a backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you think, like all the cliches, the grass is green on the other side, all those, cliches that you hear all the time. Sean Payton being this hot commodity that's out there available, and is about 5 coaching openings right now, probably 6. You figure one of these playoff coaches potentially could lose their job. Vrabel they haven't made a decision on him in Tennessee. He might be up on the chopping block. So it's a few coaches that Matt LaFleur might be on the chopping block. So I think there's a lot of options. So if you're LA and you lose this weekend, you got to make a decision on Staley. If you want to keep him, it wouldn't bother me if they kept him on, because I think he's done a good job.
All right, one last question before we move on. Did I just fall asleep at some point to wake up to find out that Sean Payton won 3 Super Bowls or something?
Like I said, my it's just simply what you have currently is what you have, and right. It's the best of what you have available. But something else crossed your path. It's like, whoa, that sounds like something. Because if you think about his time in New Orleans, it's not really. It's not the resume isn't that impressive.
That's what I'm saying. And he had Drew Brees the whole time. Yeah,
Drew Brees and the Super Bowl onside kick. I mean, you point, and then you got Reggie Bush the year before when he caught a little screen pass and shook Urlacher out of his cleats and scored a touchdown. Now, those 2 years, that post-Katrina run, that was it. But it was a few 5 and 11 years mixed in there, too, with Drew Brees healthy for 16.
Because I was thinking about this. And like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on it right now. I don't want to spend too much time on it right now. But because I was thinking, like, well, maybe I would like Harbaugh. I mean, he doesn't have the Super Bowl ring, but, what he did with San Francisco.
Going to Indiana.
All right. Fair enough. So what's next?
All right, we got Minnesota, Chicago. Or Minnesota Giants, excuse me.
Yeah, Minnesota and New Jersey. Okay. So I will, full disclosure, everybody, full disclosure. Raf will tell you, I literally changed my pick right before we started this. Like, I have no idea who wins. Now, what I do know is that they just played on Christmas Eve, and it came down to a 61-yard field goal during Minnesota's whiteout. Suddenly they turned into Penn State or something for a day. What shocked me about going back to that game was the Giants compiled 448 yards, total yards that game. And it took me back because, as you can see, my team played against them twice, and I was like, what?
Minnesota's defense is not good.
But this is the thing. So Minnesota's secondary.
I'm going to get their rank. Keep going, but I'm just going to get their rank.
Minnesota secondary, I don't know how to say it other than just to say they're slow. They got Patrick Peterson, but this ain't Patrick Peterson from, 8 years ago or whatever. They're slow. The Giants have a lot of speed at wide receiver. Maybe not the best receivers per se, maybe not Pro Bowlers or people that you really check for, Darius Slayton and Richie James Jr., but I've heard that Richie James saved some people fantasy season, so maybe I'm off on that one. But what I do like for the Giants is my guy. I am the only stan in the world for Adoree Jackson. That's my guy from USC. He's been practicing this week. He had the knee injury, missed the last 7 games. If he comes back, that might change a little bit of something, because now you got more options when it comes to trying to corral Justin Jefferson, because believe me, you will have to corral Justin Jefferson. Minnesota, on the other hand, is 8-1 at home this year. Real quick, the one loss?
Was that the Dallas?
That was the Dallas game, 40-3, because both of these teams combined make the first matchup in NFL history that both teams have a negative point differential. How about that? So now you want to know why I had trouble picking this game? That's why. So my motto for this game, if I'm Jersey, is run, Forrest, run. And by Forrest, I mean Danny Dimes. Run Daniel Jones. Minnesota is going to be slow to react. That secondary, as I mentioned, is slow. You may find yourself 2 to 3 plays where he can get 8 to 9 yards, keep a drive alive.
They were down 30-0 to Indianapolis.
Yep, 100%. 100%. And like I said, they just played on Christmas Eve, so the Giants have tape on Minnesota. Even though Minnesota has won games this year, nobody believes in them. Nobody. And part of that has to do with my guy, KC8 as I like to call
Do
him.
you like that?
KC8 greater than RG3, Kirk Cousins. You know,
Like,
that's my guy. But Kirk Cousins doesn't necessarily, he's not a playoff kind of guy sometimes. Like, you know, he has some duds. I can admit that, even though he's my guy. So with that being said, I'm gonna close my eyes and I'm gonna think about it again real quick. And I'm gonna pick Minnesota 23-20
all right, yep. Locked
because
in.
I just don't trust the Giants offense enough to actually pull the trigger.
Yeah, I got Minnesota 28-20. Playing at home. Division champs. I know the narrative around Kirk Cousins that he's not a primetime player, but I don't think they're playing at 8 o'clock. I think they're playing early in the day. So that might help.
KC8 don't come out at night.
So he's good to go. What time is their game? The game's at 4:30. That's not primetime Kurt. That's 4:30 Kurt. You're good to go. On top of that, I think Minnesota's philosophy and their players line up. There's no hole. So like they like to pass the ball. For some reason, Detroit traded Hawkinson in division. Never seen that. Like at that level, I wouldn't imagine the Patriots ever trading Gronk to Miami.
Right.
And you know, when Miami was hot, because Minnesota was hot when they got it. They were a good team. Their defense is, like I said, still terrible. Then you got Jefferson. Green Bay had 3 dudes on them. In most of those situations, they have the corner on them, linebacker, safety on top. It was like a straight line. Like they were all trying to get his autograph. It had him stacked up. But Thielen sneaks in there on the backside. You have Osborne, makes plays. He's like his strong. He's like a muscle hamster slot receiver, which is, you know, so Thielen basically he can sneak through. Thielen gets a lot of touchdowns on that end line off the play action, off the run action, because he's got Delvin Cook. So they'll run Thielen across the back of the end zone. Everybody's jumping to Delvin Cook play action, or they're jumping the Jefferson slant route or the little dig routes, whatever routes he runs. And Thielen's just wide open, number 19, yellow gloves, yellow cleats, wide open, back in the end zone. So I think a couple of those plays will happen. TJ Hawkinson convert third downs. Kirk Cousins, I think he's a game manager with ultimate playmakers all around him. So it elevates his game management skills. Danny Dimes, I just don't trust that he's going to produce touchdowns. I think he's responsible for like maybe 22 touchdowns on the season. And that's rushing touchdowns and passing. That's one thing if you had a terrible record. But they were a winning team. You know, they were 6-1, 6-2. They made the playoffs, but your quarterback is only responsible for 22 touchdowns when he played all 17 games. And he didn't turn the ball over. So it wasn't like he was not getting touchdowns because he's turning the ball over. It's like he wasn't getting touchdowns because he wasn't trying to. They don't put them in a position to create touchdowns. And I just think that you get behind the 8 ball against a team that's the firepower that Minnesota has, that you're gonna have to throw the ball, and he doesn't have a high interception ratio, but he doesn't throw the ball that much.
So I talked about people not trusting Minnesota. Does Minnesota have a chance to win the NFC? Because, you know, I'm looking across the landscape here, right? And
they were 2 or 3.
They are the 3. But the reason I asked that question,
that would get them San Francisco.
Yes, they would likely get San Francisco next week. Obvious, you know, like so. But then you get back into the Brock Purdy thing, the whole conversation about being a rookie again, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like if I'm Minnesota, I don't necessarily feel that I can't beat a rookie quarterback. You know, I think where they might run into trouble is if they match up with Philly. But, you know, just throwing it out there, just asking the question.
Because I think what Jimmy G did for San Francisco And what Deebo Samuel allows San Francisco to do is to just give you so many different rushing looks. It's one thing where you line up, like for instance, Tampa Bay lines up, they can only give you a couple of different looks, rushing wise. You're not going to get Tom Brady with Fournette and another running back side by side and be like, man, I don't know what's going to happen here.
Right.
You know, it's like either a check down or some kind of handoff, or it's going to be a standard route and one of these guys going to stay in the block. Like you're not going to get anything tricky. You put Deebo Samuel, Brock Purdy, and Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, and then you got Brandon Ayuk coming in motion. Man, you have no idea what can happen in that play. It could be a snap, touch pass. It could be a snap, RPO, touch pass. Ayuk's in the flat. Like, you have no idea. And that pass, because it's so tricky, the defense has to pause. And that gives Purdy an extra second to make the simple read. The read is to get the ball to Ayuk in the flat. The play action freezes the linebacker. You get the ball to him in the flat. Now the playmaker gets you 17 yards. So he's 1 for 1 on his passes, but he's 1 for 1 for 17 yards. And then now everyone comes up, and they get Kittle one-on-one, boom, boom. So I think Minnesota will struggle there. I think they'll beat the Giants. Mm-hmm. I think any matchup, if they have the matchup with San Francisco next week, is like that's what they're gonna do.
Okay, fair enough. Bengals and Ravens, and I don't know why the last few days a couple of things have been bugging me. This is random. I'm gonna get to the game, but just I don't know. It bugs me when people say Jaguar, and it bugs me when I look at the word and it looks like Bengal and people say Bangle. It just bothers me. I don't know why. It just does. But anyway, on to the game. So we talked a little bit pre-show, and I gave you my score. So Cincinnati 27-17, and you asked me, how's Baltimore going to get 17
points?
Right. So this is what I got. Just roll with me here. Just bear with me. So I was doing a little reading today, and I saw that Mr. Huntley, in addition to Lamar Jackson, hasn't really been practicing. You know, he's got some tendonitis in the throwing shoulder. You know, they obviously sat him last week. So potentially we're looking at Anthony Brown starting again. So with that being said, if Anthony Brown starts, maybe they don't get to 17. Maybe they get to 13 again. But the reason why I think Baltimore could get to 17 is because Cincinnati is missing both their right guard and right tackle potentially. So we're looking at Alex Kappa and La'el Collins, both injured. Does that free some pressure from Baltimore? Maybe get a strip sack, maybe get a short field, whatever the case may be. Baltimore may be able to run the ball a little bit on Cincinnati. Where Baltimore gets into trouble, their secondary just can't stop Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's going to pick them apart, Razor Ramon style. Bad guy going to carve you up. That's what's going to happen.
Joe Burrow's only averaged 215 yards in the 2 games they played this year.
That's fine, but the problem is that he got a guy called Jamar Chase, who defenses tend not to be able to cover. So I don't need him to throw for 300 yards. He could have 215 yards. I just need 3 touchdowns. I'll take the touchdowns over the yards. Back to Danny Jones. Daniel Jones, right? Like, he doesn't get the touchdown production. He might get some yards, but Burrow, I don't need the yards. Just get me the touchdowns, because Baltimore's secondary is barbecue chicken. Now, with that being said, even if somehow, by the grace of God, Lamar Jackson walks onto that field, it don't matter. He missed the last 6 games. You ain't coming back against Cincinnati, who there's a guy that you'll get to know later down the road. I call him Black Adam. And he always tells me, Black Adam. Yes. He always tells me that when you're looking at these things, and Buffalo has this great defense that Josh Allen gets extra credit for, my retort to that is, have you seen Cincinnati's defense lately?
Oh, they're top 5.
Yeah. So got it. He's a LSU fan, Joe Burrow, all that good stuff like that. Shout out Black Adam.
LSU.
But anyway, back to the point. If Lamar Jackson steps onto the field, he's missed the last 6 games. That's not the defense you want to come back against. If they were playing Miami, one thing. If they were playing, Jacksonville, one thing. Even though Jacksonville's defense is okay, but one thing. But putting him on the road at Cincinnati in the playoff division opponent that hates your guts already, that ain't the move. He's rusty. They still don't have a lot of receivers that are worth the ground they walk on.
Whatsoever.
And I don't mean that disrespectfully, y'all. I'm just speaking figuratively, and I'm passionate. It just happens that way. So no disrespect to the Ravens wide receivers, but it just is what it is.
Some teams have dynamic playmakers at the position, and some teams don't. The Ravens are one of them. They don't have a guy. They don't have a single guy in the wide receiver skill position that warrants a double team.
Correct. And that's where
easy for a defensive coordinator when the favorite target is a tight end that you can bracket with the linebacker and the safety over the top. He's still gonna get his catches, but Mark Andrews
that's why
beat you for on a 60-yard route.
And that's why hopefully this week these Raven running backs been watching some Jamal Lewis tape. Because the game is going to rest on their shoulders. They need to keep Cincinnati off the field because even if Joe Burrow isn't getting a lot of yards, I just don't know if Baltimore's defense can get them off the field consistently enough.
There's only so much energy you can have as a human being when you show up to do your job. And if you have offense that's going to go 3 and out, so many teams, you can't go into the game with a third-string quarterback against the top 5 defense and expect it.
No, and even a second string if Huntley does play,
Now, Huntley doesn't play that well either. I watched him against Atlanta. He wasn't.
Yeah, because of course, like you said, I gotta say go Utes, but at some point something's got to give. If it was in Baltimore, maybe you give them a puncher's chance, but on the road in Cincinnati, again, I say 27-17, and that 17 might be a little generous. I admit.
You're generous. I got 24-13, but it's never in doubt. And 24-13, Cincinnati just on the field, running the ball. Maybe Ravens defense, solid defense, has been the core since they moved from Cleveland to Baltimore. They've been a tough defensive team. But there's only so much defense you can play. Unless you can create points with your defense, like those early 2000 Ravens or the Joe Flacco, Ed Reed.
I was going to say, Ed Reed ain't walking through that door.
Yeah, like if you can create, all right, now you get the ball back at the 32, you get a single first down, you get a cheap field goal, then you get another stop. Like if you're not generating those kind of plays, then I can't imagine them getting up to 17 points. Unless it's like legit Mixon tips the ball in the air on a screen pass and somebody just happens to come through, pick it and run it back. But if Zach Taylor's smart, he's like, listen, we have an advantage because we're playing arguably the second best quarterback in the league versus their third best quarterback on their team. Why put us in a position where we won't be able to succeed? We have these running backs, P. Ryan, Mixon, solid tight ends, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and then you got Joe Burrow. So that's your advantage. Even with the guards that are out, you mix it up. You figure out, okay, how do we attack this coming downhill? You lean on the Baltimore defense because their offense isn't going to do anything. It's going to be so many 3 and outs. So I'm going to say their first 5 drives, I got 4 punts and a turnover.
So 24-13, you say?
24-13. The 13 is generous.
All right, well, check it out. Do you happen to remember the score when they just played a few days ago?
I can't remember, but I know it wasn't.
It was 27-13, and that was with the third stringer. So, I don't know. It might be repeating itself, but we'll see.
I think once they had it sewn up, it was like, all right, they went vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
They probably ran cover 2 on defense and then just rest the passer, stay in the passing lane. They didn't have the timing down with those wide receivers, and the wide receivers aren't dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Something in any position to be successful in the NFL. You have to be dynamic somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
On each side of the ball. So you have to have elite linebacker play, an elite secondary, an elite pass rush, something. You have to have that. And you can be average and good other places, but you got to be elite somewhere. If you're
Right.
not anywhere, you're going to be one of these average teams that stumble your way to 8 or 9 wins. In Baltimore's case, they got the 10.
And shout out to Roquan Smith for getting that money.
Yeah, big shout out to Roquan Swift so they can go ahead and franchise tag Lamar.
For 2 years. For 2 of them. He gonna be on the Kirk Cousins plan.
Yeah, he gonna be in New York with Hopkins and Derrick Henry.
I would love, no disrespect, I would love to see him on South Beach.
Ooh.
Fastest offense ever? I don't know. You know,
how do you who broaches that conversation? Does Miami call Baltimore, or do they call? Because Lamar, can he walk?
I mean,
give up a first round pick, right?
I mean, Miami's quarterback can walk, but it might come with a little stumble.
Pick, right? Although they traded away to Denver, didn't they?
They did. Yes, they did. Yep. But I didn't intend it. But perfect segue. Buffalo in Miami.
Hey, we're not gonna talk about this for long.
Oh yes, we are. Because I found the secret. I searched deep and wide on.
You got the Miami beating Buffalo secret?
Yes, I found it.
I'm all ears.
All right. You get about 12 inches of snow and Josh Allen gets stuck and can't make it to the stadium. So that's your secret right there.
They move it to Monday. We got a whole nother day.
No.
Day, unless you lock him in his hotel room.
No, I have no secret. Because, at one point I thought Miami may start Teddy Bridgewater at least. And I was like, still don't got the secret, but I can make it competitive, but now that Skylar Thompson is playing.
The front office run around here in the NFL with 2 wide receivers and run 4-2 something, 4-3 something. And you don't have a quarterback that can throw it 65 yards in the air.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
One thing I want to say, though. So this is the problem, right? Because when Tua played against Buffalo, they went 1-1, and both games were 1-score games.
Yeah, but one game, Buffalo had the ball for 70% of the game.
I know. Hey, a win is a win.
Just run out of bounds.
A win is a win.
A win is a win, but like, you can get down there in the boxing match for 11 rounds and catch a dude on the chin. They be like, well, I beat him. Like, well, he was beating you for 33 minutes.
Is that a shot at Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury?
Nah.
Anyway. No, but Miami has to run to the perimeter. I don't think they can just run at Buffalo, like just run straight into them. They have to hit the perimeters. That's where Cheetah comes in. You just have to get creative with the play calling. Hey, they used to have Ronnie Brown and run that Wildcat. Maybe you run something with Tyreek. I don't know. You got to cheat your way to points, turnovers, punt returns, something along those lines. But the other part of that is that you got to get Buffalo to punt first.
In English, what you're telling me is that Miami, who has a third-string quarterback, the rookie head coach, an owner that's still trying to get Tom Brady on boats and signing contracts, are just going to show up in January, go up to upstate New York, and run swing passes, screens, and beat the number 3.
Reverses, baby, reverses. All I got for you.
They can play with 12 men on the field. That'd be their only advantage.
All I got for you is 28-10 Buffalo, and that might be generous that Buffalo only scores 28 because they're going to get a lot of possessions.
I'm a bet on Buffalo.
They're going to get a lot of possessions. They're going to get a lot of them because Miami's going to punt.
It's going to be it's literally going to be like the Denver-Cincinnati, or the Cincinnati-Baltimore game. It's going to be a carbon copy.
This game literally.
Second best quarterback, arguably with Josh Allen, going up against a team with a third-string quarterback, and the defense has no. Yeah, you got Tyreek Hill. He's fast. Waddle's fast. Gesicki's in the middle. He only has 1 touchdown catch. Like, so you have a quarterback, like Mike McDaniels, everyone's talking about he's a great coach. You know, he's a good young coach, and he had Miami rolling. But I'm like, how do you have
Black coach?
blackish? Maybe blackish. You know, we'll ingratiate him.
Hey, but Mostert is fast. Jeff Wilson is fast. Miami
Yeah,
got,
they're all fast, but
but I don't.
how do
Mostert is
you
hurt
not
though.
have the simple? Gesicki should have more touchdowns. I think Tyreek Hill only has like 4 or 5 touchdowns on the year.
Well, Tyreek Hill was getting a lot of yards, and
He was only getting them on his own.
He had touchdowns early in the season because initially, Justin Jefferson got close to breaking. Justin Jefferson got close to breaking that single season record, but we forget Tyreek Hill was actually on that pace for the first 5 or 6 games of the season, and people were saying he should be in the MVP conversation. But like you said,
like wide receivers are going to make that conversation.
I'm not going to, like you said, we're not going to spend too much time on that one. We may have spent enough already, but we got to give you the content. I got to give you the scenarios.
Got to get the people what they want. We're not like some channels only talk about 2 teams.
Yeah, I got to give you the scenarios. But with that said, like I said, 28-10 with a whole lot of punts, but it wouldn't surprise me if this was the NFL version as close as you can get to TCU and Georgia.
Oh, that game was brutal. I mean, I called it. I didn't call 58 points.
Shout out to Black Adam again. His rank and my rank ain't the same, But yeah, so Monday night, I'm not a fan of the Monday night playoff game.
I'm so upset that it's a Monday night game. It's the only reason it's a Monday night game because they want to showcase Tom Brady and the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, I mean, to be fair,
we were gonna watch the football game anyway. It could have came on tonight. We would have watched it. It's not
To be fair, we did have a Monday night playoff game last year. To be fair, and it was the Cardinals and the Rams. So let's be fair. Yes. I'm sure that's the reason.
I'll come down off my.
I'm sure that's the reason they picked this game to be the Monday night game for everything you just said. So, disclaimer, everybody. Disclaimer. I don't watch First Take or Undisputed, and the reason that I don't watch those shows is not because I don't like the shows, and it's not because I don't like the people. It's because of days like Tuesday morning after this Monday night game.
Tuesday morning? You mean today? You mean this morning when they were talking about it, or yesterday?
No,
morning?
I mean the day after the game takes place.
The day or the 3 days before the game, because I watched it today on my lunch break, and the topic was somebody had ranked the top quarterbacks 1 through 14 in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes 1. I think they had Justin Herbert 2. Go down the list. Tom Brady was 9. So the segment was about the 9 or the quarterbacks ranked. They got to 9, and they spent about 19 minutes talking about 9. It got to the point I was cooking my lunch. I looked over. I'm like, I thought it switched because I was watching on YouTube. I thought it switched to a Tom Brady segment. And listen, I'm a fan of greatness. I respect it, but I do think they treat the Dallas Cowboys as if no one watches any other football games. I had 2 sons play football. I've watched so many youth football games over the last 6 or 7 years. I went and scouted some other football games. We went to championship games. My son wasn't in. We watched football. I went to arena football games. So I had a friend playing one of those. We, as Americans who like football, we're going to watch football. So if you were to put Jacksonville and Los Angeles on Monday night, people were going to watch that game because we want to know who's going on to the next round. You're not going to get more people watching that game as if there's so many more Cowboys fans than just regular football fans. So, I mean, that's just my piece. Maybe there's some math to it that says, okay, you're wrong. The needle moves even more. But yeah, keep in mind, Monday night, what time's that game? Is it a night game? Let me pull it up real quick.
Yeah, it's got to be, the 8:30 slot, I would think.
I got to go to work.
Eastern time, of course, I'm
on the East Coast. That game goes off at 11 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, I get it. You want to.
It's the GOAT. What if it's the GOAT's last game?
Then cool. I can watch it at 6:30. On Sunday, I'd have been good with that because I got Monday off. I want to chill on Monday.
It doesn't work like that. But with that being said, week 1, 19-3, Tampa Bay wins against Dallas.
I don't know how Dallas. I don't know how they have these kind of games.
You know, that game in week 1 was such a long time ago. So there can't be anything to pull from that game that would be relevant for this game. Or
I
is there?
for that game.
Or is there? So I was thinking Tampa Bay is not a good running team. You know, they're somewhere near the bottom. Probably, I think if I remember correctly, they're last, you know, in rushing.
And that game was on 8:15 Monday night.
See what I'm saying? This is the thing, though. This is the thing, though. As bad as Tampa Bay is running the ball, in that game way back in week 1, Mr. Fournette, 21 carries and 127 yards. I'm not calling the rushing game the X factor because I said that already for some other games, but the X factor for this game is Mr. Micah Parsons. Dallas needs to rush Tom Brady because if you go back to those old school Raven Patriots games, just getting in Tom Brady's face is enough for him to just throw the ball on the ground, give up a play or two. Dallas has a problem on their end at quarterback. You know, this guy, Dakota Rain Prescott, this guy missed
Mr. Bulldog
5 games this season. And guess what? He led the league in interceptions.
and the other guy ain't got a job. How that
You
work?
know, so with that being said, I hate stats like this, but I'm gonna just throw it out there. We talked about it pre-show.
Man, he love these stats. Don't listen to him.
I don't love the stats. I love one of the stats. I love I don't love this one. I don't love this one. Tom Brady is 7-0 against Dallas. That's all I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm not gonna break it down because he played for another team for like at least 5 of those, you know. So we ain't gonna go there. That's just a thing that I should say if I'm being diligent. But anyway, the stat that I do like is Dak Prescott has not won a road playoff game yet. Now, he hasn't played very many. He's only played one that I could remember off the top of my head, which was the game against the Rams. You know, but he hasn't won a road playoff game nonetheless. Going into the pirate ship. Was that?
I thought they beat Seattle back in the day.
That was at home.
Oh, that was a game at home. Okay.
Yeah, that was at home.
Oh.
So that's what I'm saying. It's hard to put stock into it because it's a small sample size. I'm just stating it as a matter of fact that he has not won a road playoff game. I don't know how that works. Like, is he going to go in there, maybe have some jitters? Does he know that he hasn't won a road playoff? Like those type of things, the mental side of the game.
Someone brought it up.
Yeah, the mental side of the game. But what helps Dallas is Mr. Van Der Esch is back at practice. So if he can play, then that's another body that you have to worry about that could potentially free Micah Parsons. You know, Lawrence is practicing. So Dallas's defense is maybe getting intact. You know, in that game in week 1, Micah Parsons had 5 pressures along with 2 sacks. That's why I named him the X Factor, because he has to get pressure. He doesn't have to sack Tom Brady. He doesn't have to hit Tom Brady. He just has to be present in Tom Brady's space. You know,
Tampa Bay can win this game.
Tampa Bay can win this game.
And it shouldn't be that. If you told me one team was 12-5 and second in their division, and all 4 teams in their division were in contention for playoff spots, it shows you how tough their division was.
And they were in contention for the 1 seed last week.
Yeah, versus a team that everybody in the division is under 500, and it was mathematically possible at week 18 that all 4 of those teams could have been 79. So I mean, like, you're talking about mediocre and terrible, but yet the team that won that, they won the division at 8-9. They have a chance at beating them, and this is a stat that I don't know how much you want to factor into this, but this year,
go for it.
Dallas is 12-5, right?
Correct.
They are 11-1 on turf. They're 1-4 on grass.
I like that one.
So
that's one that caught my eye.
Can Tom Brady and Tampa Bay, can they get to 20 points easy? Not like get to 20 points and it's like a struggle. You're just grinding out. But can they like put together 8, 9, 10 play drive, first possession, get a touchdown, hold them, get a punt, come down, be up 10-0? Because I think being up 2 possessions in a football game is that really sets the tone, because just if you get 2 long drives. And that's the thing that Tom Brady did in New England. It wasn't that they were just out there. The Randy Moss years, yeah, they were out there beating you, like they was Georgia and TCU. They were beating the brakes off NFL teams. It was ridiculous. But a lot of those years, man, Tom Brady just was like, we're going to go on a 12-play drive. We're going to eat up 6.5 minutes, and we're going to get a touchdown to one of these tight ends. Gronk or Hernandez, or we're gonna get Wes Walker or Edelman or one of these little guys. We're gonna get a little touchdown. We're gonna run maybe a little screen with Falk or something. We're gonna get a touchdown after this 12-play drive. Then our defense, that's just been sitting there waiting to get on the field, gets out there and get a 3 and out, because you get the other offense, they come out, get 3 and out. Tom Brady gets the ball back, they get a field goal, now they have 10-0. Now you down double digits, 2 possessions to Tom Brady to go. Now you start doing things like going for it on 4th and 3, Indianapolis, trick plays, stuff that you shouldn't do. Kellen Moore calls a very bland game. Mike Evans said today, he's like, they're a simple team. He's like, they line up and just say, hey, I think my 11 can beat your 11. I didn't think it was a shot at Dallas, but what happens is if you play that simple, I can beat you in my 11, but in the first couple of possessions, you're down 10-0, 13-7 at that, at half. Like the game against the Commanders last week. I turned the game on, it started the second half. I think the score was 13-6 Commanders. I think Dallas had the ball. And I'm like, okay, this is where you lean on the 2 running backs. You got 2 big tight ends. You have CeeDee Lamb. You have a very sturdy quarterback, calm under pressure, never seems to be rattled. But it's like, why does it look like your 12 wins felt like a struggle? Like your season, you went 12-5. I think Kansas City went, 14-3?
Yes.
So you're only a couple of games off of them, but they are clearly way up here. And me and you are having a real conversation about an 8-9 team beating you and offering evidence to support that. It's just weird that you put yourself in a position as a team to where Tom Brady is talking to the Buccaneers players, Leftwich is talking to these guys, Todd Bowles talking to these guys, telling them that you can beat them even though they have 4 more wins than you.
Well, this is the problem that I have with this game and why it's so hard for me to pick. Because, back in the day, March Madness used to have the last 10 games. That was a big factor on whether you got into the tournament or not. In these last couple of games, Dallas has looked awful.
But they're still 5-2 in the last 7 games.
I know, but they've looked awful. Whereas Tampa, these last 2 to 3 games, the offense has woken up.
No.
Now, granted, not against the best competition.
They had,
but nonetheless,
against Carolina. That was it.
Yeah, they woke up, and Mike Evans, Mike Evans said, "I'm back." You know what I'm saying? But anyway,
they were playing a man-to-man straight up. Like, you can't do that with a guy that big.
That ain't his fault.
That's like, you can't just be like, yeah, we're gonna play cover 1 and see what happens. Because that's what Dallas does. Cover 1 with the robber. So you bring the linebacker, you bring the safety down in the box, and you just you expect your front 4 to get there with pressure. You expect your linebacker core to be in passing lanes. Well, on grass, you're not as fast. And your boy Diggs,
feast or famine.
If he's in cover 1, that means his eyes should be on the man, because he's a man-to-man. Cover 1 means he's a man-to-man defense.
Feast or famine.
And he's going to be looking back. And Godwin's going to hit him with a double move. Or Evans is just going to run. No post move, no wiggle, just go. Run the go route. Or they're going to slip Miller out of the slot, and someone's going to be looking back, and now you gave him a cheap touchdown.
All right, so this is what I got. I closed my eyes. I visioned a world where the Cowboys lose, and I got so happy. But then it kicked in, and I said, there's just certain teams in sports. Dallas Cowboys, the New York Yankees, the Duke Blue Devils, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. You start counting them out. Not in a championship scenario because they don't win championships per se, but you count them out, and you look up, and they win a game, and you go, how the hell did they win that game? So no astute analysis. Dallas 28-24.
You got 24 points for Tampa Bay.
I do, but it's more of a byproduct of Dallas.
Dak throwing them one.
Dak throwing them one, giving them a short field. Brady, you brought up Herbert making a play like at the end of a half or something, stealing some points or something. Brady in a hurry up situation.
In that 2-minute offense, he just left, which turns the mic off. Sideline with the thing over his face. Tom not listening to him.
Oh, he not listening to the black coach.
Not listening. Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. Yeah, I got Dallas 28-21 just because I think you gotta. If you're a coach on the Dallas staff, Tampa Bay is terrible against the run. They can't run the ball. Run the ball, control the clock, take your shots when you get them. Win the game. 21 is a stretch because on the season, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have scored less points than the Chicago Bears. So 21 is a stretch, but like I said, that covered one. Diggs looking in the backfield. I could see Evans running right by him for, like the way he ran by Ramsey last year in the playoff game. Just just one slips through, but yeah, 28-20, Dallas wins, and they're comfortable. I think it's comfortable all game. I don't think it's a situation where they're pressing. I think Tampa Bay gets their 21st point, 4 minutes left in the game.
And that's the thing. Speaking of pressing, Tampa loves to press with those corners. So we're gonna see. Rubber got to meet the road.
If Moore just would call some screen passes for his running backs, you got two of them. I had a parlay early this year. Zeke to get 11.5 yards receiving. This in this passing league where you don't want to just keep handing the ball to the running back. You got, I think Cooper Rush was the quarterback.
Right.
So you got a young quarterback, like basically a second string quarterback, a backup quarterback his entire.
Who went to a MAC school.
You're like, you know what? Let's keep it simple. Let's dump it off to these playmakers. I'm like, okay, cool. Drop. He got 2 yards. He got two. No, I think he got 9 yards. He caught two little passes. One was a check down. One was a screen pass that got caught. I think he got 7 yards on that. And then a check down, he got 2.5. So I missed that parlay by 2 yards because, like I said, Kellen Moore's playbook. Like Mike Evans.
Not that we're endorsing betting, y'all.
We're not endorsing gambling. I do not. I'm not a gambling advisor. Do not follow my lead. But if you want to gamble, have a little fun with it, man. It's a little adrenaline.
But you mentioned Tom Brady not listening to the black coach. So let's talk about these black coaches for a second.
Black coaches, where they at?
They are in the NBA. They are in the NBA.
And they're in the NBA because the black players in the NBA utilize every bit of their leverage, even to their detriment sometimes, i.e. telling the GM to trade for this player, and then they get there and it's like, this doesn't work. Nah, man, we'll make it work. We've been friends for years, and then it doesn't work. Now you got to see how you can move $48 million contracts.
Yeah. Right, so check it out. So obviously, Sean McVay is the youngest coach to win a Super Bowl. Who is the second youngest?
Mike Tomlin?
Mike Tomlin. And what caught me when I was looking back at this subject, once we figured out we were going to talk about it, I didn't realize that him and Tony Dungy's Super Bowls were 2 years apart. That they won them
further apart.
Yeah, I thought they were further apart because sometimes it's hard to realize that Mike Tomlin has been coaching so long.
Yeah, I think he just finished 15.
He's like 15 years. Yeah.
Never been under 500.
I didn't have one gray hair when he started coaching.
Man, that was a surprise to go running.
Yeah,
Just go running.
And so when I looked back at it, it made me go a little bit further back, and I landed on Art Shell. Raider great, Raider legend. And so I wanted to start with him because he was around late, 89, 90, starting out. So that's more of like your modern era. Like you have people that go back to the 20s, like I found a Frederick Pollard back in 1921 who coached the Akron Pros of the American Professional Football Association, but I figured that wasn't relevant to this conversation. But so Art Shell has a 56 and 52 career record as a head coach. He made the AFC Championship game in 1990. His overall record with I'm confused if they were Oakland or LA Raiders, was 54 and 38, right? He got fired in 1994, so he coached there for 5 years, made an AFC Championship game, 54 and 38 record. And the season that he got fired, they went 9-7. Al Davis came out and said, quote, "I made a mistake." Art Shell came back a second time to the Raiders, went 2-14, got fired, So his overall record ended up being
Don't go back.
Don't go back. His record ended up being 56 and 52, which is still, by my calculation, not a math major, but it is a winning record.
Yep.
With a championship game appearance. So, like, I was thinking about that. And I was trying to think if I could think of coaches that I'll just stick with the 54 and 38. I was trying to think of coaches who had a record similar to that lost their job. And I'm sure they exist, but nothing stands out.
I can't think of someone short of Jimmy Johnson.
Which was just politics, really. Like, he didn't get fired because of performance.
He did wrong with Jerry.
Right. It wasn't performance related. But then I started looking at Tony Dungy, and then I landed on this man made the NFC Championship game, and then before I could blink, John Gruden was winning a Super Bowl with his team. And oh, by the way, winning the Super Bowl by defeating his former team that he had left.
And rumor has it that they felt like the Bill Callahan tailored the game plan to Tampa Bay's defensive strengths.
Yes.
And it was like, felt like we changed a lot up.
Yeah, because we got a guy with some picks in that game that won Super Bowl MVP that, like, wasn't necessarily, that guy. But when I look at it, that was like a moment in time. I didn't want to do the whole like this happened, so black coaches got screwed. I didn't want to do that. Even though that is a situation of a black coach getting screwed, I didn't want to do that. So then I went on to Steve Wilkes, more recent. 3-13 his first year with the Cardinals. So I ain't even trying to sell you that, he went 8-8 or something and got wrongfully canned. But what I will say is, if you take over a team and they go 3-13, they were probably bad in the first place.
Correct.
But then what got me about that, and this is where I want you to chime in because we talked about this slightly. I want you to expand on your point a little bit. This is where Kingsbury came in. They were like, hey, we can get Kyler Murray. We can get Kingsbury. Whereas younger Mike Wilson sat back and said, this man didn't even compete for a conference title with Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech and got fired from Texas Tech.
NFL with the 5'8" quarterback and succeed.
Explain it to me. I don't get it.
Short of not being in these rooms, only thing I can think of is that handsome guy, over 6 feet tall, used to play quarterback, was in the league as a backup quarterback, probably had some friends, probably had friends in different places, in different rooms. And that's part of it. I think you don't get the black coach in a lot of these rooms. Mm-hmm. First of all, a lot of them aren't quarterbacks. There's very few former black coaches that were NFL quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Like Mike Tomlin, I don't think he played in the league. He said he tried, and he's like, "Man, this is one for me." He's like, "I can coach it." He's like, "I just couldn't play it." Tony Dungy I think he was a quarterback in college, but he ended up playing corner when he got to the league. I believe Herm Edwards was a defensive player.
Yeah, he was a defensive back. Yep, famous play against the Giants with the kneel
lens.
Kneel the ball. Yep.
So you just have like this narrative. It's the same thing in the NBA where a lot of coaches, they feel like, oh, former point guards make great coaches. So in the NBA, you can say, well, these are all the great point guards, and a lot of them are black. So this narrative that quarterbacks make great head coaches, it's not a lot of them that are black. So you can get these quarterbacks in the room, and your narrative can simply be, oh, good quarterbacks make good head coaches. You got McConnell and Minnesota right now kind of proving that, like, mediocre quarterbacks can be good coaches. They tried to get one of the McCown guys from the high school in Texas that coached the Texans. So you're just in different rooms. So throughout your entire career as a quarterback, you're in different rooms. You're shaking hands with different GMs. You're the ambassador for the team. You're going to all these meetings. So you just kind of get exposed differently.
Yeah, and not to do the cowboy thing, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Jason Garrett. But I think what got me, one of the coaching hires that got me, shout out to Fred. Y'all will meet Fred at some point too. Shout out to Fred. What got me was Joe Judge. I was like, hold up, y'all just hired a wide receiver coach as your head coach? Like,
no, he wasn't even a wide receiver coach.
Special teams or something.
Special teams.
Yeah, just because he was in the same room. Yeah, he was just around Bill Belichick and, like, maybe had a cigar with him once or twice. And that brought me down. I was in the rabbit hole. That brought me down to Brian Flores, and how he was winning in Miami. They didn't make the playoffs because other teams had a better record, I guess, but he had winning records and just didn't make the playoffs. And it was known that it was worst kept secret that he didn't want Tua. So he never even got to get a quarterback, I guess, that he supported. But now I don't know how to feel because they hired a black coach anyway, Mike McDaniel. I can't even get mad about that.
See, the thing, Mike McDaniel's, yes, it's a black coach per whatever 23andMe DNA thing. Like I said, my kids are half each side of the spectrum. But if you didn't say that, if you had him in the room, he was your standard run-of-the-mill white guy. And I'm not saying just because you're white, you're getting these jobs. And I'm not saying because you're black, you're not getting these jobs. But what happens is the access to certain one of these rooms. That's why they use the statement, Eric Bieniemy doesn't interview well. Because it's like he doesn't relate, or they don't like the way he talks, they don't like his vernacular, they don't like maybe he's not as well spoken, which is commonly something that happens. You and I did 20 plus years in our career. You can tell a lot of times you're sitting in certain situations where, because we're articulate, because we're intelligent, because we speak the way we do, that there was an ease that you bring to a room full of like white executives, upper management. Like, oh, Sergeant Wilson's a good guy. Sergeant Riley's a good guy. I like him. Even they start saying it publicly. They don't say it as much now. You say about Obama, he speaks so well, like reading.
Yeah, Joe Biden even called him clean.
Just things of that nature. So I think what happens is a lot of black coaches don't get in those rooms. Mm-hmm. But then also, black coaches are taking bad jobs because they have to take a job because they're not offered the Brooklyn Nets job. They get the Orlando Magic's job. you got to take it. And they'll fire you. They'll hire a white coach and they'll fire him too. But the teams don't get any better. So, Lovie Smith, you had to take the Houston job. David Culley, you had to take the Houston job. David Culley had no business being a head coach of any team.
Ever.
He was probably not fit for it at all. But then you get a bad team job. Kingsbury, the thing that he gets is because he's in those rooms, he gets the team that has the number 1 draft pick, Chuck Pagano. You fire the black dude and you bring in a coach.
I'm gonna get to him
because he has the number 1 pick. So
quick question.
You get there with some optimism.
Quick question. Do you think Byron Leftwich, with what went down with Jacksonville and him not getting that job last year and him demanding the GM and all that, do you think that comes back to bite him in future job attempts?
In theory, you think it would, but I think the Tampa Bay offense was so bad this year, I can't see him being high on a lot of people's lists. And if he is high on somebody's list, he's high on Denver's list. I don't think that's a good job. He'd be high on Houston's list. I don't think that's a good job. He'd be high on maybe Indy's list. I'm not sure if that's a good job. Because I think sometimes, we have these bridge quarterbacks. I think sometimes they use black coaches as bridge coaches. Because whoever comes to Houston next year, they got the 2nd pick in the draft. They're going to get a good coach. Denver, I don't know when they can get off of Russell Wilson's contract, but they're not going to bring in Sean Payton. Sean Payton's not taking that job because he knows I'm not taking this job with very little draft capital. So somebody like D'Amico Ryans is going to get that job. They're going to go 5-12 next year. And then whenever they get their picks back, so he'll get 2 years, i.e. Anthony Lynn. You get the pick.
Good one.
You get to try it out for a little bit. They're like, well, we gave him a shot. And then they bring another guy in. I don't think it's all racism. I just think it's that the fraternity that some of these white coaches grow up in the league, it just extends that branch, even if it's mediocre, i.e. the Belichick tree. It's a mediocre, even with Romeo Cannellan, it's a mediocre branch. Well,
I agree partially with that, but I think that the room existing to some degree spawned from racism, because we got to remember, 60s and 70s weren't that long ago, relatively speaking, so a lot of these rooms were created when it was an only room, you couldn't be in that room. So it's a domino effect of not being able to have access to those rooms. And that's why I wanted to take a second while we were talking about this. I wanted to look at this because I was looking at NBC Sports and they did a rundown of the Andy Reid coaching tree because you brought up Belichick's coaching tree. And on that Andy Reid coaching tree, we have Leslie Frazier, we have Todd Bowles, and the one that stood out to me, even though he ain't black, was Ron Rivera. Obviously because that just happens to be my head coach. So anyway, so Andy Reid, but then when you brought up Bieniemy, that's where I start to kind of looking at the tree again, right? And I see Sean McDermott, John Harbaugh, successful. McDermott hasn't won a Super Bowl yet, but it may come. It might be this year. But then I see Matt Nagy, or Nagy, I'm not even sure. Then you got Brad Childress and Pat Shurmur that also came from that tree. And the last one is Spagnuolo. I know you remember him. So all of these guys came from Andy Reid's tree. They all got these chances. But with Bieniemy, it's so odd because everybody talked about, and I forgot Doug Peterson. But everybody, it's odd because Doug Peterson is known as an offensive dude that he's innovative, all that kind of stuff like that. Nagy got a job because of his perceived offensive prowess. But then when you come back to Bieniemy, I always hear white people say, well, Andy Reid calls the plays.
We all know that Bieniemy calls the plays.
Well, it's just one of those things. So Andy Reid didn't call the plays for any of these other coaches that went on to
Bieniemy
not be
might not be
successful. Well, Bieniemy also has some stuff in his past. He's got some skeletons in the closet, but those skeletons are over 22 years old. So at some point, the dude was 20 or in his 20s or whatever. Like, let's get past whatever. I ain't gonna speculate, but I've read some things.
1 second. Give me 1 second.
All right.
We'll edit this in post production. Brief intermission.
But yeah, it's just odd that Andy Reid wasn't calling the plays until Bieniemy was the offensive coordinator. Like, that's just odd that people feel that way, and I don't know.
I think Ty Haley got a job out of the tree from the Andy Reid tree.
Yeah, so that's why I don't know where this comes from, and where I'm not saying it's racism per se, but it may be prejudice. I don't know, because I was reading an article about the lawsuits that the former players were filing, and the quote that I saw was very damning, which comes back to maybe how they view coaches. And the quote was that the black players should not get as much money because they use less brain capacity. So like, that makes me wonder how much of that seeps into the way the owners think. Because you look at teams like the Cowboys. Not picking on the Cowboys. I know I could do that all day, but not trying to pick on them. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. They haven't had a black coach. Hell, the Giants
haven't.
And not only that, but the Giants have only started one black quarterback in their history. You remember that one?
Was that Geno?
That was Geno, and then that broke Eli's Iron Man streak.
I thought they started like the other kid, Davis something.
Davis Webb or whatever he is.
Webb.
Webb
Kevin Gilbride should have been a head coach, and
that might have came later, but yeah.
I don't know why they fired Coughlin.
So when I look at it, it's just something that seems to be prevalent in that sport, because when I look at college basketball, for example, there's a little bit more black coaches. As a matter of fact, I got something for you. When it comes to college basketball, give me a second. Get back to my notes real quick. So when I look at college basketball, as of... Oh, no, this is the wrong one. Sorry. My update. Here we go. Let's see if this is the one. Oh, no, I think I lost my stat. All right. Well, I'll come back to that. But this is a stat that I picked up from Chris Bumbaca. Hopefully, I said that correctly. Of USA Today, and this is as of September 2022. So this is NFL coaches, not just head coaches, but just coaches altogether. So, of the 722 on-field coaches in the NFL this season, 314 or 43.5% identify as non-white, which is the biggest figure in NFL history for non-white coaches that are on the field. So the coaches are there, there's people like maybe not necessarily within a tree, so to speak, but there's people around that
are available.
Hopefully in the next 10 years we see some improvement there, where, in college football, 131 FBS schools, soon to be 133, soon to be 133. There, as of December 18th, so just before Christmas, so this does not take into account probably who's been fired and all that stuff, but there were 15 black coaches at those 131 schools, or if you want more math, 11.45% of the FBS coaches are black. So do you think there's a correlation, the same correlation from the NFL to college as far as the clubs and the good old boy network and the rooms and all that stuff?
I think the college ranks the best college football players come from a certain region of our country that's been embattled with that racial segregated anti-black history down south between Texas, go all the way east, and then south down to Florida. That's where the bulk of your best football players come from. Then you have California. I think they rank third. It goes like Florida, Texas, California. But for the most part, that piece in the middle, in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, all these other states. So they don't mind the black athlete winning, wearing a uniform and winning. But it seems as if there's rarely an opportunity for those elite football programs down south to have a black coach. LSU had Ed Orgeron, who could barely talk. I couldn't understand a single word he said.
Didn't that remind you of Joe Dirt? Homie, where you make it, boy?
Just that old from that bayou, you got that lingo. I know.
That was actually pretty good. Yeah.
It was like, but so it wasn't a matter of like, oh, this person isn't articulate enough. They don't speak the language. We can't take them to country clubs. Yada 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 yada. I think a lot of it is a slave plantation owner worker kind of mentality, and I think it as a black coach, you can get that vibe, and you don't want to have to deal with it. And I think Flores is probably a prime example. He's like, man, I'm not dealing with this. Mainly because, especially when you're winning, you think that's your leverage.
Mm-hmm.
Putting a good product on the field. I'm selling out the stadium all the time. You fire him after they go 9-8 last year. If they started slow, go 9-8. Now you bring in this other guy. What if they started 0-7? Now you got this new stadium, 70,000 seats, and you're only selling 42,000 tickets, 50,000 tickets. Now you're giving away tickets so you don't get blacked out on the local television, because the NFL will black you out. If your stadium's not packed, they won't put you on TV.
So what was Miami's record this year?
I think they ended the year 9-8.
There you go.
So was his 9-8 different, or even example of Dan
Well,
Camp?
it was
his 9-8 versus Cardwell's 9-7.
Well, I think it was different just in the aspect of how they won, where, he obviously didn't have Tyreek Hill. He obviously didn't have Tyreek Hill.
Season versus guy who started off hot and tailed off.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say it looked different because Flores' specialty was defense. Whereas McDaniel, I guess, brings an exciting brand of offense. But I mean, he also had Tyreek Hill to put beside.
And they still had a 5 streak, even though
yeah,
they had like a 3-game winning streak. 3-game losing streak, 5-game winning streak, 5-game losing streak.
Right.
That's how their season went.
Right.
So
I found my stat, so I wanted to just go back for a second because we talked about Tomlin winning the Super Bowl and Tony Dungy. So those are the only 2 black coaches that have won a Super Bowl in the NFL. In FBS college football, there are 0. In college basketball, there is John Thompson, Georgetown fame. Growing up, I thought Georgetown was a HBCU because he kept it like that. Nolan Richardson in his 40 minutes of hell down in Arkansas.
I just love watching them play.
Yes. Tubby Smith from my Kentucky Wildcats. And then Kevin Ollie at good old UConn that beat my Kentucky Wildcats to get his title. So those are your 4. But with college basketball, it's a little different.
She has 2 in women's basketball. She's only coach of color.
Ain't that something?
Championships.
Yeah. So the reason that I got stuck on that is because a lot of people measure success by championships, but in college basketball, it's a little rougher because you got to go on a 6-game tear at the right time, one and done. So I went back and looked at some coaches that I think we could all agree are successful. So like Coach Jim Boeheim of Syracuse University fame, maybe owes a little bit of, hopefully he gives Carmelo's Christmas presents every year, like hopefully that's the thing.
Scholarships.
But yeah, but Mr. Boeheim, no disrespect, 1 title in 44 years. Bobby Knight, when he wasn't throwing chairs, he was winning 3 national titles over the course of 29 years. So that's over 9 years per title. And then you say, well, Coach K won a lot. Like, well, yeah, like he won 5 titles in 41 years. So 1 title every 8 years. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not knocking any of them because Coach K still had a bunch of Sweet 16s and Final Fours in there. But I'm just using the measure of winning championships. So this is not a moment where I'm trying to trash successful dudes. I'm just making a point that if you're firing a black coach because he didn't get you a championship or he didn't get you a Final Four, the best of the best, not including John Wooden, but not, the best of the best, those are clips they were winning at.
Yeah, they don't win at that high rated either.
Right. And then in the NBA, just to put the cherry on top, in the NBA, we have 6 black coaches that have won titles. So Bill Russell, of course, he won all the titles. Like if he was the water boy, he'll have a title. That man just won titles. Lenny Wilkins, who brought the only championship to Seattle. Doc overrated. His mama named him Glenn Rivers. As Raphael Rutley will say, as this podcast goes on, you will hear him talk about that 2008 Boston team.
The Boston 3 party.
Yes, that championship has got them so much notoriety that we're still talking about them.
Man, they had a 10-year anniversary Instagram post a few years ago. I'm like,
yes, you got Tyronn Lue. You'll hear Raphael Rutley talk about that one too, because in case you didn't know, he a big old LeBron fan.
Triple double, man.
So 3-1. There you go. NBA history right there. You got let's see. You got Jones. I can't remember if that was Sam or KC, but that was the Boston Celtics in 84 and 86. So that was the Larry, some of the Larry Bird titles. And then the last one was a coach for the Warriors by the name of Adles in 1975. So those were the 6 NBA champion black coaches. But when you look back at it, that league, I guess by design, like you mentioned earlier, I don't know if they have measures in place to hire black coaches, but I guess to some degree it just makes sense. Because, you got people like Ime Udoka, who is of Nigerian descent, so not necessarily American black per se. He got a chance with Boston, took him to the finals last year. Obviously, we know what happened after that. But overall, it just shows that if you hire a black coach, if you hire a white coach, whatever the case may be, As long as you hire a good coach, you have a chance to win. If you hire a bad coach, you ain't gonna win.
Not at all.
But the difference is that a lot
You're
of these
too
white
young.
coaches get extra
You go
chances.
into a bad organization, you're probably not going to win. And you're going
Right.
to be scapegoat. So I don't like that's the thing. I don't think it's all race based, but I do think in certain sports, the black professionals involved in those sports can exercise their leverage, even in any professional environment associated with sports, better then they're going to get more stuff. Like Stephen A. Smith's contract with ESPN is probably pretty legit. It's probably on par with what Colin Cowherd gets with Fox Sports because he exercised that leverage. A lot of black coaches in the NBA get a lot of their jobs because their relationships with the players. NBA is 71.1% black, something like that, something along those lines. So if I'm a GM or an owner and I want to ensure that my team, who is 7 out of 10 players are black, I get the best out of them. If you have to hire a black person, then you do that. But if you consistently hire if you pass up Ime Udoka to take the guy who's a statistician off the Spurs because he worked with Popovich and he called in a favor, and they're like, yo, we can all see that Udoka's a better coach. Or if you do something similar like hire Steve Nash, that was obvious. It was like, listen, not necessarily that he's white and he got the position, but it's like there's more deserving coaches, period. And then in this heightened era where it's like, hey, we are highlighting that there are not as many black coaches in these leagues that are mathematically just the numbers of people in the league are mostly black, and your top superstars in these leagues are black.
Mm-hmm.
Like me and you talked about this. I try to explain it to someone. I'm like, imagine you woke up tomorrow and all the GMs and 80% of the coaches in hockey were black. You'd be like, that looks weird. That looks odd. Why is it that the ice is full of some of the best white hockey players from Canada and around the world, but yet all the leadership is completely different? Completely different rooms. You're bringing in people. You're bringing in guys from local hockey leagues to be the president personnel. You're bringing in guys from high school hockey teams to get interviewed.
Yeah.
Imagine if I'm coaching my son goes to Northern high school hockey team, and the New Jersey Devils, because I went to college with the GM, they called me in to be a head coach, get an interview for a head coach. That sounds outrageous. It happened in the NFL last year.
Sounds like Jeff Saturday to me.
Just Saturday got hired this season.
And if it wasn't for the media and people going nuts, the Texans would have hired a high school offensive
They
coordinator.
would have. But Deion Sanders going from high school to HBCU is considered like, whoa, that's a reach.
Right.
So
right.
The way I try to get, it's not necessarily just the skin tone. It's just the relatability and the relationships that people have within these organizations. Like, so if you're going to ignore that, then you're going to get the backlash. I don't think every person that gets fired is because you're black. I'm sick of having you here. I don't think that's the case, but I do think there is a measure of we want to keep our people in place to ensure that this coaching circle is successful, ensure that I get this other connection that I got from hiring. I hired your guy. Now, can we do this other thing together professionally?
Right, and shout out to the Denver Broncos because not only did they interview Jim Caldwell to potentially, meet the Rooney Rule, but they interviewed David Shaw as well from Stanford. So, kudos to them for interviewing two black head coaches that we know about.
Just to pick Sean Payton to be your head coach
and
pick Miami.
But I can't get out of here. I can't get out of here without bringing it up. Just from the standpoint, we talked about it slightly. Best college football conference, the SEC. They had their first black coach in 2007, which was Sylvester Croom down at Mississippi State. He actually won SEC Coach of the Year, in his third year. Didn't last too much longer after that. I don't know how you win SEC Coach of the Year at Mississippi State. You don't keep your job for long after that, but that's a whole nother conversation. But, you also have James Franklin, who coached down at Vandy. You also had Derek Mason, who coached at Vandy. So fat shouts to Vandy for hiring 2 black coaches. Derek Mason has since been defensive coordinator, at least at Oklahoma State that I know of. James Franklin obviously went on to go coach Penn State, for those uninitiated,
And he got a $90 million extension.
And he got a $90 million extension up in Happy Valley. The University of Kentucky hired Joker Phillips, as their head coach. Didn't last very long, but it just didn't go very well. He wasn't very successful. And then that last coach brought us some entertainment because he had a dude by the name of Johnny Football, Kevin Sumlin at Texas A&M, who, just like the Boston Celtics in that championship, everybody celebrates that win over Alabama back in 2012 like it happened yesterday. That's somehow that's like Texas A&M's moment of fame is that one win against Alabama. But since then, he went to Arizona. It didn't work out very well. He ended up in the XFL. But side note, I did not know that he went to Purdue. But so the reason I picked the SEC is because, one, it's the best conference in college football. Hear me, Black Adam, I said it. And also it's the South, so like Jim Crow, all that kind of stuff like that. So, I looked at a few other places. I'm not going to belabor this very much, but I'm just going to bring up a few names real quick. So obviously Colorado just hired Deion Sanders, who had more of a non-traditional rise, to become the coach. He's prime time. Yeah. But Syracuse has Dino Babers, my University of Maryland, the Terps, I can't reach it. There you go. The Terps, got Mike Locksley, who used to be on Nick Saban's staff, because you asked that question earlier and I just remembered that. So he came from Nick Saban, but also failed at New Mexico. So he got a second job because he went to the Nick Saban rehabilitation program. Ask Lane Kiffin about it. And, maybe Bill O'Brien will graduate from that as well.
Go back, work under St. Nick, get hired again.
Trevor Lawrence is offensive coordinator at Clemson. That's another one. Is it Clemson or is it Clemson? It's just one of those things. But Tony Elliott, offensive coordinator for Clemson, had an awful situation this season with the 3 players getting killed and all that kind of stuff. But he came from Clemson and became the coach at UVA this year. Your old stomping grounds. And then the one that I wanted to hit on real quick is Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame. He took over for Brian Kelly. Now, I didn't watch Brian Kelly over the course of his Notre Dame career. He's a great coach, won everywhere that he went. But I saw Brian Kelly lose to UConn at home. I saw him lose to South Florida at home. Marcus Freeman started out the season with a loss to Ohio State, and everybody said, fire him. You know what I'm saying? Same Ohio State that was in the college football playoff. Same Ohio State.
60% of the 5 stars that end up in the Big Ten go to Ohio State.
Yeah, same Ohio State that got Marvin Harrison. Harvin Marison Jr. We don't say that name. Same Ohio State that has C.J. Stroud, who is going to be the first or second pick at quarterback in the draft this year. He lost that game. They said, fire him. Now, it didn't help that he lost to Marshall the next week. That didn't help. I admit that. Yeah, but then he went 9-2 the rest of the way. And as of the last time I looked about 3 weeks ago, Notre Dame has the number 3 recruiting class coming into next season. That may change, once signing day and all that hits. But as of right now, number 3 recruiting class. So the black coach can win. And especially to your point earlier about the jobs. He got Notre Dame. You got to be pretty bad, Charlie Weiss, to mess it up at Notre Dame.
Yo, he was terrible.
Yeah.
I think pants was a problem. You can't wear your pants like that close to your nipples and think you're going to be a successful.
Yeah, Sylvester Croom.
You look too buttoned up. You got to loosen up, man. You got to. Yeah, he was not good.
What if Sylvester Croom went to Auburn instead of Mississippi State? I don't know if that changes anything, but that goes back to the point of James Franklin at Vanderbilt. These are the jobs. Mike Locksley at New Mexico. What do you want from me? Yeah. So the black coach, I think it's a little more racial than you do, but not racial in the sense that white people wake up and say, I just don't want to hire a black coach. I don't think it's that simple. Like you said, I think it's just familiarity. People that they know, people that like I tell you, I ain't trying to go there, but I'm just making a point. You ain't seen loyalty until you see them Filipinos come out for a Pacquiao fight. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just want somebody that look like you.
That's it.
To support you. Those Mexicans come out for Canelo.
Boxing thrived on the white heavyweight versus black heavyweight matchup throughout the 80s and 90s. They lived off of that. They just, especially if you had a white guy from like Boston or Rhode Island or something.
Right. So I don't want to say
leprechauns and everything else would come out, and then Tyson go out there and annihilate him, or Riddick Bowe go out there and annihilate him, and we go back to life is normal. They've made a movie about it, The Great White Hype. So I think people when people hear race and have conversations about race, they think it's just so negative and it's taboo. Like, no, it's not taboo. Some of the stuff is just in your face.
You know what?
The biggest problem I have with the NFL is that we all see what a poor job Josh McDaniels does. We all see how he reneged in Indianapolis, and then he gets another job and he does a poor job and they get rid of the quarterback. We all knew that you wanted to hire a high school wide receiver coach to be your head coach in Houston. We all, like, these reports came out. Cliff Kingsbury came from Texas Tech 5-7. Now all of a sudden he's going to Arizona with number 1 draft pick. Nathaniel Hackett sat next to Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur while they came up with a game plan and got a job and ended up getting fired. So Pete Carroll was getting investigated at USC. They're like, hey, man, come on up to PCH to Seattle. We'll take care of it.
And Jim Harbaugh's getting investigated right now.
Across Lake Superior to go to the other side of Indiana. Coach.
Steve Wilkes would have probably liked that number 1 draft pick, because they drafted Josh Rosen that year before. Like, he might want to do over and have Kyler Murray instead of Josh Rosen. Don't get me wrong. I thought Josh Rosen was going to be good, but I'm just saying.
I didn't think so. He was getting too many injuries in college.
He was. He definitely was.
Shoulder problem. Like, those aren't ankles. Ankles you can fix it up. But if you're getting hit and getting injured in college, then you're not going to survive in the NFL if you're just getting injured that much off of hits.
But I just want to let people know, at the risk of sounding woke, because that's the most overused buzzword nowadays. So at the risk of sounding woke, my daughter always tells me when she want to do something that I won't let her do, like go to her friend's house. It's cute because she's 4. She says, Dad, the only way for me to not go there is to go there. So the only way to not talk about race is to talk about race. You know what I mean? Once we talk about it, seriously talk about it, not just passing or you got to hear me out because I got a microphone or something. Talk about it, and maybe some of these conversations go away. Some of these owners hire these coaches because, like, I think the owners want to win. You know what I mean? And in theory, you're going to hire the best person available for the job to win. That person may happen to be a black person. But if you're at the country club golfing with your buddy smoking a cigar, you may miss that black dude because he ain't at that country club with you.
Yeah, if you're
That's what I got.
Kaiser is like that in and of itself. If they're not having conversations about the hiring practices within the NFL based off of that event, then I don't know what's going to spark it. It may be something as simple as Roger Goodell works for the owners. Maybe nothing to do. The players can collectively bargain as much as they can, but they don't have the same leverage. The owners have so much leverage in the collective bargaining, so you can't bargain for the coach because the coaches aren't in the players union. It's the players. So the coaches have to lobby on their own. And I
prefer baseball for my collective bargaining.
Because all baseball parents are lawyers. You know how much baseball in America? You can call your dad or your uncle because I truly believe that. And
yes.
Because they hold out and get whatever they want. They can hold out on Monday. By Thursday, ESPN is reporting the new deal. I'm like, NFL, NBA, they'll say, hey, we want 52% of the revenue. They're like, we'll give you 46. They're like, all right, we'll take it.
Yeah. So I heard. So I definitely don't think that this will be the last time we talk about this subject.
Yeah.
But I heard a rumor. I heard a rumor about you, and I heard that you got something you want to get off your chest.
Championships are overrated. I think people ride them out. I think there's a catalyst to how you win a championship. I think there's a core reason why you win it. Then I think it's a bunch of people who just kind of live off of it. It's like the growing up in a tough neighborhood. Yeah, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm from Compton. I'm from this part of Dallas. I'm from this part of Florida. And like everyone talks about it. Like, listen, like Joe Budden said, everybody's a killer. We're all punks. Everybody can't be a killer. So you look at the 2008 Celtics. They won a championship. I respect it. And they went back a couple years later. Respect it.
I told y'all.
But the issue I have is they literally have championship dinners and anniversary parties for themselves. It's like, I get that you won, but you won one championship after you built the super team. And then every opportunity you get to shoot down somebody else who did that same concept better than you, you try. Paul Pierce knows he's not better than LeBron. Draymond told him in the game, like, listen, you think you can get that farewell tour? You're not Kobe. Like, it just all championships aren't equal. You know, they simply are. Brad Johnson has a Super Bowl ring. So does Trent Dilfer.
I just want to know if James Posey and Eddie House get invited to these dinners.
Eddie House is on TV. And the thing about it, Antoine Walker's on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I'm not trying to be me. Why? Why are they on TV? Richard Sherman's on TV. Some of these people, Andrew Woodward's on TV. Tom Brady's, yeah, he has 7 rings. Why is he on TV? Why is he going to be on TV? Oh, because he's in the Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP. They talk about Mike McCarthy. You know, he did win a Super Bowl. Yeah.
I mean, all I got to say about that is if I got to sit up here and listen to Eli and Peyton on a Monday night, you could listen to Tom Brady once a week.
Listen, I like Eli.
I know you do.
Home, they're doing the same thing you and I are doing now. I like the way they break down plays. But even Peyton's championships are a little. I think that's why I think, and that the reason I say championships are overrated, not in the sense that I think people's accomplishments are overrated, but what happens is the regular season, whatever sport you play, baseball 162 games, NFL 17 games, NBA 82 games, that's where you show that you're a better player than these other players. I get that the playoff comes. And if you don't have a good enough team, Bradley Beal does not have a good enough team to make a deep run in the playoffs. But that doesn't mean skill for skill, he's not just as good as Luka. See what I mean?
First of all, yes, Black Brad is not as good as Luka. But anyway, whole nother conversation. So, I got something I want to get off my chest too. And you'll learn, America, I have a lot of things to get off my chest. And I struggled because I wanted to yell about the NFL talking about the neutral site down in Atlanta if Buffalo and Kansas City play each other. So I'll save that for another day just in case that game happens. But what is on my mind is exposure and how important it can be to college football or any sport in general. But I'm going to focus on college football. So, out west, you got the USC Trojans. And then nobody cares about anybody else from out there. Maybe Oregon because they got the Nike money. But outside of that, nobody cares about UCLA football. Nobody cares about the Arizona schools. We love Utah because we were fortunate enough to live there, but nobody cares about Utah on the grand scale. But what people care about is prime time. What got me upset today is that I was reading about how Deion Sanders let word out that in week 0, which is the week before week 1, so week 0, you have these 6 to 10 games of just like this year, the best game was Northwestern against Nebraska in Ireland. So whatever. The rest of the games were like Illinois, Wyoming teams playing, FCS schools, so on and so forth. Well, Deion let it be known that there was a potential that Colorado would play against Arizona State, who also has a brand new coach, who was the offensive coordinator for Oregon this past season, who resurrected Bo Nix's career, Kenny Dillingham. So the word on the street is the Pac-12 got wind that Deion leaked this, and now that may go away and not be a thing anymore. So Pac-12, the only time people talk about you is when they say there ain't going to be a Pac-12 team in the playoffs.
That's it.
They talk about USC maybe, but they ain't talk about USC recently until Caleb Williams got there and Lincoln Riley.
Or you get the Rose Bowl.
You know, so you had a chance to not only capitalize off of Deion's star, but you had a chance for a young coach that's younger than Sean McVay was when he took the Rams job to get exposure at Arizona State, who, whenever I read articles about sleeping in college football, is usually at the top of the list. You had a chance to make that game. For example, this year in that first week of the season, we got Florida State and LSU on Sunday night. We got Clemson and Georgia Tech on Monday night. Nobody wanted to see that Clemson Georgia Tech game but Clemson fans. Clemson, whatever. Point being, I like to call them cousin Clemens because they're my little cousin that like just ain't a little bit right in the head, cousin Clemens. But I digress. Point being, this was your chance to take over the national stage because Deion has been shoved down our throat positively and negatively since he took this job. Big debates. Because Deion may have leaked that everything leaks. I'm watching the NFL draft and I get the pick when it's still 3 minutes on the clock if I'm on Twitter. And you're mad because he may have leaked to someone, hey, we're going to play in week 0 against the Sun Devils. You know, like literally, I sit there and big wrestling fan, I apologize, but I could find out what's going to happen on SmackDown that airs on Friday right now. And you're mad at Deion because he told somebody in ESPN or Power or whatever that they were going to play Arizona State in 0 week. Pac-12, you dropped the ball. You are the GOAT with the lowercase g. Because you had the ability to get prime time in this game because everybody wants to see prime time. Like, if you're a supporter, you want to see how he's going to do. If you're a detractor, you want to see how he's going to do. And you're going to use that one game either way to decide if you were right or wrong.
You got this guy, he can't beat Arizona State. Or, yeah, he beat him, but it's Arizona State with a rookie head coach.
And guess what? And guess what?
Any 5-star recruits from Florida, they got these guys from the school. It all sets a tone to where people are talking, because that's it. That's how you get the TV deal.
And guess what? In case people have been living under a rock for the last year, we only have one more season left with UCLA and USC in the Pac-12.
Going to the Big Ten. Just go ahead and just divide the country up into 4s.
Can we just build something without those 2 schools? I mean, granted, there's rumors that you might bring in San Diego State so you can get the Southern California markets back. But with USC and UCLA moving out the door, can we create something to make me want to watch a Pac-12 game in the future? Because the Herb will tell you straight up, he talks about USC because that's what you want. But USC ain't an option no more for the Pac-12. Deion is supposed to carry that flag right now. And you just screwed him out of an exposure one-off game on network TV because he was excited and told somebody about it. That's what I had to get off my chest.
But the game can't happen.
It's just stupid, man. It's just stupid. You know, but we'll come back to that neutral site game down in Atlanta because I don't even know if I'm more mad that it's a neutral site game or the fact that it's in Atlanta.
It's way too far.
No offense. You know, and with especially, I haven't looked at the logistics. Maybe there was a concert, but Indianapolis is perfect distance for both. You know, if you want to get the most of their fans as you could possibly get.
It's a dome because you're not going to
get
football fans from Atlanta because Atlanta can't sell that stadium out.
You know, so I mean,
bunch of red seats.
You know, but I'll attack that another day. But you know, just to let you know, these are the things that are on my chest. So
well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Coming to the end of our first show.
Thank you, America.
Thank you, America, for listening. Stay tuned. We'll continue to do this as long as there's air in my lungs and his. Just a
And where
couple
you
of
find him,
veterans.
you will find me.
Just a couple of veterans talking sports.
There you go. All right. We'll talk to y'all soon. America, love ya. Bye.
Sports is ordered. Signing out.